the food insecurity crunch that happened in 2000, that happened right at the end of the Bush administration, right at the beginning of the Obama administration. The argument they made was food insecurity was the problem. It was basically that children binge eat. Kids go from fluctuating periods where they have access to tons of food, and then they have periods where they don't. And my interpretation of that, you know, this is once again the cynical side of me, it's when a student gets access to possibly welfare money from a poor area, and then they binge eat, and then the rest of the month they're struggling to even get water or bread. That's how I interpreted it. That's, you know, that's, if you're saying it's food insecurity, there has to be a way that they get access to the food, and some ways in which they don't. So why do we do it? Why do we justify it? And this is straight from the Healthy Schools movement. We need to make sure that children get nutrients, so they supply energy, growth and development, they improve resistance to illness and infection, and they build and repair body tissue. So if you have to go to a board meeting and you have to justify any of this, save this PowerPoint and say, this came from Healthy Schools 2020, this is where it's from, and why we have to have this stuff in our schools. Federal requirements is this. You have to provide 1/3 minimum during the day of calcium, iron, vitamin A, and vitamin C to students. That is your requirement as a school. That is the federal Healthy Schools requirement. You have to decide what portion to provide. The law is every student must eat lunch, but every student has to be offered breakfast. So that is the law of the land. But they want you to supply half, but this is the federal requirement. This is all the federal requirement is. It's 1/3 of calcium, iron, vitamin A, and vitamin C. So Healthy People 2020 was really the movement that said by 2020, all of this is going to happen. Here's my other school reform issue. Never ever label something with a year, because it's never going to come true and be completely the way that it's supposed to be. But this is the goal of Healthy People 2020. This is what it is. This is the bullet points. This is what they're telling you that all schools have to have. So think about it. Think about whether or not this is going to actually be in effect. I know from my own experiences, elementary school recess, I've seen that cut ridiculously across the United States. When I went to elementary school, my recess was 40 minutes. How long is it in your elementary buildings?
20.
20? And then what's it like in Union? It's
about 20.
20, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So
I think we have recess.
It gets longer. It's longer for like kindergarten and first grade, and then they kind of phase in with the combination of paras and supervisors, a shorter lunch period as they get a little older.
Okay, all right, yeah. So we're supposed to increase the amount of time that has recess, and I just don't see that happening. So food services, one of the things that this district really, that the Lewis book really talked about is whether or not you outsource food services or you do it internally. And their advice, what's Oklahoma's stance? If Oklahoma had its way, how should school cafeterias work? What's the cheapest way to do it? District controlled, but at one central location, food gets bussed in to the schools. That is the ideal model, not done internally. It will save the district money in the long run.
Yeah.
Less employees, well, yeah, less employees, more efficiency. But what if that bus takes an hour and a half to get there? Then the food's not fresh. But ideally, this is what districts should be shooting to do. So breakfast programs, it's another cost for the district because you have food service employee time. It's a good idea. They're slowly growing across the United States. Most districts now, you offer it. You don't have to require that the students eat it, but you have to give them the option and the opportunity for it. One of the issues that I had, and we really talked about this in the principal building finance, fundraisers really have turned into not fundraisers where you get to sell chocolate-covered pretzels or Skittles anymore. Now you're selling pencils and crayons and glue and paper and stuff like that, because fundraisers can't sell unhealthy foods in schools for students. If they get caught, it can distract a child from having a healthy meal, and that's actually causes federal money to be pulled from schools. I'm sure a lot of your superintendents have not switched and done this yet, but it's something you need to be aware of. The other issue that we saw be a problem, and this is another like building level thing is fundraisers are not supposed to overlap between organizations. Meaning if you're the, if the lacrosse team is selling chocolate covered pretzels, then the basketball team better not be selling chocolate covered pretzels as well. And that's supposed to be regulated at the district level in this state. So that's a big deal. And I'm assuming, my guess, that has to do with athletics more than anything else here, probably. So, I mean, it's just interesting. So Oklahoma offers this, which I think is great. They're offering a grow your own food to be used in schools. And I think Union is the staple child for doing this in some of their buildings. If you do this, you get a subsidy and you get a tax break. So even if you do something that's so little and so slight, it gives you a tax break for doing it. So if you can find one community building, one elementary school where they set up a community garden, you get a tax break for it. So my advice to some of you that are going to be superintendents in these big, large districts, if you have 20 or 30 buildings, have one little building that has a cute little garden in it, and you can get the tax break that goes along with it, and you do get a tax break. So we already spoke about this, the centralized service program. Oklahoma would prefer them to be centralized. That is the recommendation of the state, is a centralized school program, which I think is interesting, instead of being site-based. Less personnel are used, but I think there's different responsibility. I think the word yup does say it all, because that is going to cause a problem, but this is what the district does prefer. So, it depends on what your service is. Are you going to be using throwaway or recyclable equipment, projected number of meals, central preparation versus site-based, and do they actually have culinary qualifications? Food service gets paid the least out of any of the auxiliary services, the employees do. The school security in most districts are the ones that are the highest paid, which is interesting to me because technology actually falls under transportation in most districts. So what I'm assuming happens here is that the people that are hired to be technology specialists are actually people that have probably just graduated high school or just graduated college that are looking for experience, and then you guys are experiencing a lot of turnover with your technology because the highest costs are coming from school security and from transportation and not from technology. So food service should be, in theory, attractive, tasting, well-balanced meals, but we know that that's not always the case. High school students would prefer a la carte meals, and food services in elementary school should actually have limited choice, but they should be made to be more presentable and more tasty. So one of the final costs that we go over is security. This is different from the state. At this level, security is regulated at the district level, not the state level. Very interesting to me that happens. Some schools are required to have armed law enforcement in their schools, while some aren't. In some states, they're not required to have armed law enforcement. We do not have a metal detector law yet in this state. I think we're getting there. I really do. But that's another thing that is district specific. It shocks me the power that got wrestled away in transportation and was given to the state, but the power was not given to the state for security. And that's shocking to me. And that's actually, if you know Dr. Mendez, he's fascinated by this in Oklahoma, because Texas, the state you probably know, the state has taken almost full control over security issues in Texas. And Oklahoma has not yet. They've left it at the district level. Me, from visiting some of your wonderful, glorious sites for internships, I can open up doors and get into any building that I want to. I never had a problem getting into buildings, except in Tulsa Public Schools. That was the toughest place for me to get into. I could not get in, and I always tried. I know that might, and I have no problem saying that on camera because it's something that you actually can learn from if you're doing work on this stuff. I always pull a door. I want to see if I can get in, because then I can at least tell the principal, hey, what if somebody would have came in? I mean, there was one building in particular, I'll wait till I'm done filming, but there was one building in particular that I got in every single door in the building. And I was told that the building was an open school climate and environment, and that's the way that they wanted the building to be. So I'm not sure why, but I'll ask about that later. So why do we have security issues? Honestly, it's 80s and 90s. It was more or less behavior and access to drugs for students. When we talk about the likely profile of a student selling drugs in a high school, what is their profile? What's their attendance like?
Good.
It's high, extremely high. How often are they going to be into school early in the morning? Yeah, and they're going to stay late. So their attendance is good. So there was an increase of drugs available, and that's why they suggested school security that occupy the perimeters and also occupy the inside of schools. but it's an expensive cost. And at this level, like I said, it's regulated at the district. I came from a state that did not require security staff to be law enforcement. It's not in Pennsylvania. It's regulated at the state level, but they say does not have to be law enforcement, and the district had to make smart hires. So I say that because I worked in 3 different school districts. Every single one of them that I was in, there was a security guard that slept with a student. Every single one of them. Every one of them. And I worked now I was in one district for 6 years where a teacher never slept with a student, but a security guard every single year slept with a student. So that was a power issue, and there were many inappropriate relationships. But if that happens, you as the superintendent, you have to handle that. You know that. I mean, that comes on your plate, and you're the one that answers it on the news, so keep that in mind. So what do they suggest should be done? They say routine patrol activities during non-school hours where they actually do a service of it. Building checks, site visits, monitoring devices, campus monitoring and patrol activities. They also suggest, and once again you get into major legal issues with this, they suggest having dogs search your buildings. What's the law on a dog search?
Can't search a person.
What?
Search a site, but not an individual.
Bingo. How about a car that's on a site?
Yep.
Yes. You can search the car, you can search the locker, but you can't search a person. So how do you do a dog search in this state if you're security? What's the technical way to do it?
They leave all their stuff in the
Take
room.
the kids
and
out.
leave.
Yep.
Search the room.
Yes. The kids have to be removed, or you put the kids in the room and you do the lockers. That's the only legal way to do it in this state, which that is a state regulated thing, and it's a state seizure. Question, John, you're shaking your head. It's weird here. It is.
I don't know if the dogs at Union, if they are not really highly trained or if the word got out quickly, but I don't know. We had dozens of dog visits this year, and maybe one time did he find anything. Just, I personally think the word got out and kids just quit.
How do you beat a dog visit?
We subcontract out with.
Well, no, how do you beat it if you're a student?
Oh, don't bring
Flush it in the toilet.
Yeah, well, if you flush it in the toilet, but how do you beat it if you actually have drugs?
Put it on yourself.
Put it on yourself. You're better carrying it in this state, which is the strangest thing.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they can't search you in this state. The other issue that you have too with the dogs, you could have a distracting smell in the next door locker. If you do that, that's actually beneficial. So if you're partnering with another student, that might be another reason why it hasn't worked. I know that in the district that I work in, the district.
I got something to say, but I'm not saying it on camera.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, because I got something to say too, and I'm not saying it on camera as well. So, metal detectors, I do want you to write this down because this is big. This is another thing that is not state controlled. Metal detectors are district controlled in Oklahoma. District controlled in Oklahoma. Once again, I'm like shaking my head on this because in Ohio, it is a state function that districts must have a metal detector. It's not the case in Oklahoma. It's why, I've told you guys kind of my work is on, it's trying to develop the how-to of a building principle for finance. I'm doing district finance because I like finance, but my goal is basically to have, for every single state in the United States, this is what you do if you're a building principal. That's my goal. Like, if I could define my research agenda, that is number 2 on my research agenda list. Every state, there's a list of what a building principal should know and should do. This is crazy to me that the metal detectors are not a function, that it's at the district level, and even crazier, it's at the building level. Most districts that I'm used to working with, if you do a metal detector legally in one building because of requirements that show that you're not discriminatory, you have to do them in every single other building. In this state, if you only want metal detectors in one building, you have the right to that, which is unique to me. So I find that interesting. It's fascinating compared to the other states that I'm studying, and I'm looking at 7 other states right now. I'm looking at Florida, Montana, Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Maine, and then Oklahoma, so 7 states. And we're the only ones that regulate metal detectors at the district level, but the district can choose which buildings to put the metal detectors in. That's unique to me. School security can do child abuse, excessive absence, and similar problems. The book mentions that. I know this is a function of guidance in this state. OSHA concerns, though, we're going to talk about that a little in human resources. OSHA can interfere with school districts in the state, too. In school police liaison activities are possible. How many of you actually can call regular policemen on a regular basis? All of you can here. So that's unique to me as well. So I can't say this enough, the building principal's relationship with school security is a heck of a lot more important than the relationship that the district has with school security. Because whatever that superintendent or you guys say in Central Bend say it means nothing, the building principal better like that security guard. That building principal better know the security guard. This is actually one of the areas where I would say, unlike everything else I've been saying in the class, I would rather hire a security guard outside of the district, not somebody inside the district. If you're doing this smart, you are not picking somebody from the community. I think that is a dumb, dumb move. So, school security with superintendent, I put this on the building principal, not the superintendent. You have to trust your building principals to make the right decision for personnel with security so that you don't pay for them. So, once again, this is a district thing in Oklahoma, and it's another thing where you can make money and invest in it. Oklahoma allows you to use community involvement for facilities. Lewis will suggest that the two things that you should subcontract out, number one is what? What's the first thing you should subcontract out if you're a district to the community?
Gym?
What?
The gym?
The swimming pool. The swimming pool is number one. And then what's number two? The high school building. So the swimming pool and the high school building is something that should be subcontracted out to the community. And they use it as a massive investment tool and also to have community buy-in. And there's a whole page of regulations on who and who cannot bid on it based on the relationships that you have with the school board. So I'll cover that when we look at the Lewis text as well. So this doesn't happen as much in Oklahoma as I thought it would, but one of the things you can do, you can sell your older computers back to other districts if you can remove confidential information. It's a way of making money as well. It's not that common in Oklahoma. We use it more as a salvage cost, which surprises me, but coming where I'm come from, what I've seen is a lot of the rich districts would wipe their computers and sell the monitors and sell the old computers to the poorer districts. And it was a good way to make money. I mean, hell, if you can sell, an old computer that's 7 years old for $40 and wipe it, that's $40 that you didn't have. You can put to activities funding, you can put to something. But from what I was reading about Oklahoma, it's more of a salvage cost thing with computers. So I'm going to talk about managing information systems next, and that's what we will do for that. So.